Hey family, this is Reginald Andre, and today I wanted to do a special video for you on how my son went from an F to an A and what it has to do with business. So let me give you a little backdrop. My son, he's in seventh grade. He goes to a school here locally in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he's been struggling with math. And the teacher called me and says, we have this program where he can come in during his lunch break and he can get tutoring from high schools that they're looking to do like extra credit and stuff. So we did that for a couple of weeks and he had another math test and it didn't go well. So I reached out to teachers and I said, well, do you guys offer maybe private, tutoring where he can just, go get a one-on-one with you instead of having like a group tutoring? So they said sure. They gave me email with the prices and it was like $35-40 an hour, depending on the teacher, and logistically the time wasn't working out, and it just didn't make sense because they were recommending that we do it 3 times a week, and that's almost 450 dollars, and just on the budget wise I just couldn't afford it. So I said, okay, you know what? Let me hunker down. Let me help my son a little harder in math. And, we would spend till 10, 11, 12 midnight doing math homework. And I just like, it was just hard, and we would Google the problems. We would go on YouTube, Khan Academy. And there's one thing to, stay up on till 11 o'clock doing math problems and doing a test or a quiz or an assignment. And if you get an A, okay, job well done. But it sucks doing math homework and up to 11 o'clock thinking you're doing it the right way. And when it's time to submit it, it's a D, it's an F. So I says, man, we got to do something different. So I remember when I was a kid, I would always go to the library after school and I would always see tutors there, private tutors. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead to the library and let me see if there's any tutors, and maybe I can just ask them how much they would charge to tutor my son. So I found a couple of tutors, and they weren't the $35-40 an hour range, but it was still around $25-30. And again, they recommended based on his grades and to catch up and etc. like that, it would be 3-4 days, and it just still wouldn't work out for me. So I asked my son, or is there any maybe students, any like high school students that that could possibly tutor you? And he says, oh yeah, my friend Paul, let me ask him. And sure enough, Paul was very excellent in math. And he says, yeah, you can bring him after school to my house. And I talked to the parents and everything, everything was good. So his grades started to gradually get better. However, it wasn't where we wanted it to be. And then also Paul started to do like a baseball practice, and the schedule just no longer worked out. And then that's where I remember, you know what? Let me try this website. Now, and this is the change of where we say what this taught me on the business side, because I was using for my business a website called Upwork. Now there's Upwork, there's another one called Fiverr. So, and for those of you who don't know what that is, let me explain it real quick. Upwork and Fiverr are essentially websites where you can hire freelancers and contractors to for many things. I actually have a list here. I'm going to read it for you. You can do if you want looking for cold calling, logos, brochures, virtual admin, customer service, web mobile, software development, sales and marketing, and translation services. And that's just some of the popular ones. So basically, Upwork is a place where you can go, you can post what type of service that you're looking for, and then people will bid on it. Now, the interesting thing with this is you are bidding both with locally, so if you're in South Florida, throughout the United States, and internationally. And internationally, the rates are dramatically different. So I posted about my son, and he was struggling his math, seventh grader, looking for help for algebra. And sure enough, we got people to respond to the post. And guess how much? $7 an hour, $6 an hour to train my son in math, compared to the $35 to $40 an hour. So I went ahead and I hired somebody, and her name is Leah, and she's actually in the Philippines, and she's been working with my son for the last 6, 7, no, probably the last 3 months, and my son's grade went from an F to an A. He actually got principal's honor roll because of the turnaround that he did. And every day for an hour, Leah would around 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we would get on a Zoom call, and my son would do one-on-one sessions with her, and he improved so much the teacher could not believe it. Now I know some of you may be saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! You're hiring someone in the Philippines, you don't know them, and you're letting them talk with your son." And that was actually a very big concern because my wife Tanya is actually the has a nonprofit called the Mavuna Project, and it's focused on human trafficking. So something like that is very, very concerning to us because we don't want, we know what's out there. We know about internet safety and things like that, and we definitely would never want to expose our son to something like that. So what we did is he actually worked out in the living room. We made sure he did not put on headphones, and we were always in the living room as he had those math sessions, and that's what we did for the safety. So what does this have to do with your business? Well, when I started my business, we as many or some of you may know, I started my business 10 years ago with $100 in my bank account. $100. And I needed a logo. And when I start calling people to do logos, you know how much they told me? $350, $250. All these prices, which are, they're fair. Don't get me wrong, they're fair prices, but I couldn't afford it. And that's when I went to Fiverr, and at the time it was called something else, and I posted the type of logo that I wanted, and the bids came back for $15, $20, $25. And this logo right now that you see on my shirt, that's the same logo I paid 10 years ago, and I've been using it since. So now to finish off with my son, he, as you know, school is finished now, and even for the summer, I'm having him continue with Leah, who I'm only paying about $8 an hour, and it's a 1 hour session every day. And she is now preparing him for 8th grade math and even for other subjects such as science. So that way, when he starts to get those classes, he's going to already be ahead. And I even took it one step further. I want my son to learn how to speak Spanish. So what I did is I did a post on Upwork, and I got people from all over, and I found someone in Colombia to provide training and for $6 an hour and 3 times a week for half an hour session. So it's basically $3 a session. He has like a digital book, and they're doing a virtual Spanish. So my son is learning Spanish this summer, so that way when he becomes an 8th grader or 9th grader and he has to take Spanish classes, he's already going to be ahead. Now, I know I got a comment here that says, well, what about the USA folks? Why aren't you supporting your local community? Well, again, as I mentioned, I couldn't afford it. And I had to do what was for my family, and I had to do what I had to do for my business. And even today, we, for our business, we were looking for a website, someone to do our website. So we hired a local company to do the design, but then the content work, I just couldn't afford it. And I didn't want the plain syndicated content that they were offering. So I went ahead and I went to Upwork and I posted what I wanted, and I got results back from all over. And in this case, we chose someone in the Philippines, and they were able to do a pretty, I would say probably a 90%. So I give them, if this was along a scale from 1 to 100, they got a 90%, because there is going to be some little things are going to be off, because although they know English, but it is going to be a little off. But this is to tell you, for your business, don't concentrate on that part, because even for our business, we have an accountant, and she lives in Oklahoma. And the prices that she gave me compared to someone in Miami, where Miami, if you think about a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, if you're renting, it's up there. It's probably $1,700-$1,800 a month. Compared to where she lives in Oklahoma, it's about, I think she had told me, it's around $950. So the cost of living here in South Florida is super high. So there's been a lot of things that we have outsourced, and sometimes yes, it is internationally, and sometimes it's within the U.S. So we're still keeping the dollars flowing. And in fact, if you even look at my expenses for my business, I would say 95% of the expenses that we have are spent locally, are spent here in South Florida. But there are some stuff that we have to outsource. Even if you look at the big companies, if you ever call customer service, if you ever call, your Dell tech support or whatever the case is, it's not local. It's either Mexico or it's Philippines or it's India or wherever the case is. So I would actually encourage you, especially if you're on a tight budget. COVID season's happening, a lot of things got slashed, and if you need something done, like right now, we're looking to get new brochures, and we're going to, post that on the Upwork, and we're going to have somebody do the content for us and do the design, and then from there, we're going to use a local printer. So if you have, I've seen call centers. So we have like one customer, for example, and they just want to be sure that anytime someone picks up the phone, it's someone answering the phone, and it's not like a voicemail or something like that. And they use somebody outside of the country through this service for that. Also, I would say about 3 years ago, we were trying cold calling, and we hired a company to through the Upwork, and we hired them to do the cold call for us. So they would call and market our services, and and go through that grind and help us with going through LinkedIn and putting all that stuff together. So that was kind of the point of the story of how my son went from an F to an A, and how it all had to do with business, because I started to learn about Upwork and learned about Fiverr all through my business. And then I finally said, let me see if I can now apply this to my personal life. And I was able to get great savings. My son was able, because he was actually, they put him in like in an academic, where basically they say, hey, you got to get your act right or we're going to kick you out of the school. So he was able to get out of that. And our nights, we're able to go to sleep at 9 o'clock again. So personally, if you have kids, especially if there's no summer camp and there's things that you want them to learn, and maybe Upwork could be an avenue that you could do. And then on the business side, if there's something that you've been, like for example, I have a friend and he's a photographer, and he was doing back to back to back events, and he needed someone to edit the events. But if he was to hire someone locally, it just wouldn't work out. They would just eat all the profits. But I think he found someone in Indiana or something like that. And again, cost of living is much cheaper. And the person was very talented. And from the comfort of their home, they were able to outsource that. So essentially, when the photographer had all the pictures, they would put it on the Dropbox, upload it to the person. The person does the edits. And 2 business days later, they got the feeds, and everybody was happy and everybody got paid. So I hope this was useful for you, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.